Hello and welcome everyone to JVology show number 34, and you are at the JVology show, which is a program that is delivered by me, Jay Fazette, the founder of JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit. And what we are busy doing in the days of the pandemic is bringing to you some of the smartest, wisest, most creative, and best thinkers in the whole JVology community to help you navigate your way through this pandemic, to prepare your business for a explosion of great good stuff as this pandemic ends, and to help support you to navigate your way through. Now, just to be clear about this, how we do that is, of course, this show where we feature brilliant people like my dear friend Jeff. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jay.
Awesome. So we have this show. We have an event called JVology Live, which is happening online to the whole world in June. We have high-end summits, which are invite only. We have digital programs. We have done-for-you services. We have you name it in this world where we try to help entrepreneurs to readjust their business models. So they have a steady stream of leads at the front end and a steady stream of recurring passive income at the back end, all through joint venture partners, which builds an entrepreneurial safety net, which many people in this time of pandemic wish they had more of. Our community is lucky that we do. And that's what we're up to. So on that note, a couple of things. I'm going to play our little video, and then we are going to come back and we are going to pick the brain of the brilliant Jeff, who is going to help you figure out what you should be doing with your business in times of economic disruption, which might sound like about right now. We'll be right back. All right, gang, welcome back to the JVology show. And we are here with my dear friend, Jeff Prager. And Jeff is an accountant, an economist, a brilliant person that has created a ton of programs around money, cash flow management, profitability. He has built businesses that make most of us look like we were having a holiday and not working very hard. But he's a brilliant and smart man. So a couple of things. If you would like to come and say hello, that's a pretty simple thing to do, which is hello, Brenda Hanna, long time no see. A couple of things. We share these shows all over Facebook. But if you want to be able to interact with us, and we'd love you to, make sure you just click the button right above the little video. And if you're not at the screen, our broadcast screen, where the video's on the left-hand side or my left-hand side, and the chat window's on the right-hand side, then we can chat and interact. So, Jeff, I could say a lot of things about you. The simple thing that I'm going to say before you introduce yourself is Jeff is brilliant. I don't take financial advice from many people because often their agenda is not in the highest and best for the people they're giving advice to. It's something driven by commissions. But Jeff is one of those folks that sees long past that, understands the trends, and has helped a multitude of companies go from struggling to incredibly profitable. So he's somebody you should listen to. So on that note, Jeff, why don't you give us like the 5,000-foot view of who you are, where you're at, and what you are busy doing these days helping people with the pandemic.
Great. My name's Jeff Prager. I run a firm called Cash Flow Engineering. In my past, I'm a retired CPA. I still lecture, run a bunch of courses for CPAs. I was a CPA for many years, sold my business, and became one of the founders of Ashworth Golf Clothing. If you're into golf, you probably have heard that brand. Unfortunately, I don't golf, but that's not why they hired me. They hired me for my financial background. After that, I started Strauss Homes, and we grew that into the second largest privately owned home builder in Colorado. Wow. And at the same time, I was running a company called Gateway American Properties, and we developed over 10,000 residential lots in the Metro Denver and Metro Phoenix areas. So that's kind of it. I retired in 2007. I saw it coming and got my last payment on my businesses May 31st, 2007. So pretty good, right?
Pretty awesome.
Then I thought I was gonna retire, so I became an adjunct professor of economics at CU Denver. Found that so boring. It was incredible. So I started more businesses, but my primary objective ever since I retired in 2007 is help other people become filthy rich at their businesses.
I love that. Love that. Love that. Okay, so You have been you've been in epic demand through this process, trying to help people to navigate their way through. You've been on podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast. I have a question for you, which is this. What is the question that people should be asking you that they're not?
Where am I going?
Okay.
Not where am I right now? Okay,
tell me more. I like that.
Okay, so look, everybody's treating this as a brand new, never happened before event. But in fact, I've been around long enough, and we had interest rates of 22% in 1982. We had the Tax Act of 1986, which turned the tax world upside down and the way you invest in commercial property upside down. We had the recession the recession starting in 1986, Black Monday, which was the day, coincidentally, we were supposed to go public with Ashworth Golf Clothing.
Oh, no.
And we were down to our last $1,000, literally. And we managed to get our minimum offering done, but not on Black Monday. We were actually yanked that day, but we did it. Then there was the recession in 92 to 94. Then we had 9/11, which is, I've told this story before. I was flying from Bali to Hong Kong. That's when it happened. Got a hold of my kids who were living in New York at the time, found out they were okay. My partner called me, goes, "We're done." And I go, "Nope, we already planned for this." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I'm going to show you I'll tell you a few steps on how we resolved it in a few minutes. But this is, so you got 9/11, you've got 2007, the mortgage crisis. Look, one thing or another is always a setback to the economic, if you will, curve in the United States. There's always some kind of disruption. Mm-hmm. We don't know what it is. We don't know when it's going to happen, but there will always be one.
Okay, so what about the people? Because I've been on a bunch of podcasts too. What about the people that are certain that this is so different? Like this one, because we're stuck in our houses. That this is not just that this is a whole different thing. And by the way, hello Juan, hello Frederick, good to see you. What's your response to that?
It is different. They're all different. But the way you act in it, you could either treat it as the worst thing that ever happened and you'll never come out of this, or you could look to the long term and say, how's this the biggest opportunity of my lifetime?
Yes.
And I choose the latter.
Yep.
And people like you, Jay, choose the latter. We're going to get through it. Are we going to have hardships? Are we going to make missteps? Absolutely. Okay. But what's happening to all your competition? What's happening to your industry? What's happening that you could take advantage of instead of saying, "Oh, woe with me"? Mm-hmm. And that's the way I look at it. I'm capitalizing on it, and I know a lot of other people are. Now, is it going to happen today? No.
There we go. And by the way, that's one of the big things, is that everyone wants shit day before yesterday. And I think one of the things in economic hardship is that it forces us to shift the focal length of our vision.
Number one. And number two, look at where you're looking at your business from. Are you in the weeds, or are you at the 50,000 foot view looking down to see what's going to happen to your business? And what kind of steps can you take right now? And there's a formula for looking at those steps.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how much time you have today, and I'm just glad you're with us. So what if somebody's in the weeds? Like, quite literally, I have described this when the pandemic started. It was like, and I'm building a software company, and that you're participating in terms of your content and the platform, those sorts of things. And I'm like, woohoo! I have dedicated time. I'm going to build this thing even faster than I thought. And yet, the reality of that is I have spent a good portion of, I guess we're almost at exactly a month in terms of when we said we're staying home. I have spent a good 3 weeks of that time fighting fires. Everything from, last night, it was my mom's tenants aren't paying rent. So now there's a new fire to fight for my mom. So for those of us that may have gotten a little sidetracked and in the weeds and fighting fires and those sorts of things, what's your best advice to get us to the view of where we're looking at our business from?
First of all, turn off the TVs, stop watching the news, stop reading the newspaper. And I don't mean that all the time, but we're oversensitive to all the news.
Yep.
So what I do is I create a graph, and I could do this on a scratch piece of paper, literally. I happen to use Excel when I do it. But the first column, I'm going to give you 8 things to think about. Okay. And we don't have a lot of time, right, Jay? So
we're generally about a half hour in these. So we got about 20 minutes.
So let me give you just the big view. Okay. Then I put, and what I'm doing in this situation is I'm putting, here's where I am right now. So my next column is my status quo.
Okay. So back up, because I'm going to list the column for people. So column number 1 is
criteria.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you 8 of them. And if I have time, I'll delve into one of them, maybe. The second column is status quo. Where are we today? In terms of these 8 criteria I'm going to give you, what I call the 8 Ps. All right. So status quo. The next one is, what if we have a very, very slow recovery, what they call a U recovery, the shape of the letter U.
Yep.
How's that going to affect me? And what happens if we have a V recovery where we recover rather quickly?
Yep.
All right. And then I look again on a scratch piece of paper or on a spreadsheet. Here's my 8 Ps, my purpose. First one is purpose. What do I stand for? What's my mission? What's my vision? Where do I want to end up? So imagine you're on the edge of a cliff, like the Grand Canyon, and the other side is way over there. In between is all these gaps and opportunities. How do you bridge from where you are to where you want to be? But first, define where do you want to be?
Yep.
Okay, the second one, your products. How are your products changing? Or more importantly, how is the messaging about your products changing? So that people are more apt to buy in this environment and or the U environment or the V environment. And this is literally what I think about every day.
Right.
All right. So product, then promotion. How are you going to use advertising, PR, joint ventures, which is really keen for your audience and mine?
We are in the midst of it right now in terms of our challenge.
Right. And how are we going to use that? PR, marketing, merchandising. How do you present yourself on your website? Does that have to change? And your sales process, how does that change? Okay. So those are what I think about when I talk about promotion. The next one is place. Place is being where your customers are. Here's something most people don't think about in terms of place. How are you communicating with your past customers, your current customers, and your future customers? Where are they in their buying decision? How do you have to alter your messaging? Okay, where are you virtually? Like I'm on all kinds of podcasts right now, but how else can you take advantage of this to be the go-to person right now?
Yep.
Place. All right. The next one is pricing. How are you pricing your products? Like I know a few of my clients are having a tough time and they've asked me for some breaks. And I consult with clients on focusing them on their key numbers, their strategies, and what they need to do. And I do it in a very simple way. But price, even when my clients can't afford it, I'm not dropping my price to $0. I'm dropping it to $1 to keep them engaged. Because I know we're going to get through this. And I know who my clients are. But that's not for everyone. That's for the ones that are really, really struggling, like my restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what are you doing in terms of your pricing, and how are you building your customer journey so that as we come up from this, you organically build your sales? You're not always selling, but they naturally will be compelled to go from one of your products to another, going up your value chain.
Right.
All right. The sixth one is production. How are you producing your goods and services? So a lot of people in the service industry don't think about their operational costs, but now's the time to be trying to get everything down to a system so you could deliver it with the least amount of time. Time is a cost.
Yes, it is.
All right. How do you get your product so it's the least amount of time, and or your service the least amount of time? It is as cookie cutter as you can make it, so that you could actually scale up during this time. And if you don't have the best people working with you, hire them. This is the best time to hire them.
Okay, so I want to, because I was replying to a question over on YouTube. By the way, we're simultaneously streaming to YouTube. I finally figured out how to do that from StreamYard. So we got a couple of additional viewers that I'm juggling. So I want to just make sure I'm with you. 8 P's: purpose, products, promotion, place, pricing, people. So far, yes.
How many do you have?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're on people. Or
I've already said people. Sorry.
Okay. Wait. Purpose, product, promotion, place, price, production.
Production is what I missed. Thank you, brother.
Okay. And then now let's go to people or management. Now's the time to build your organization, whether you have a virtual organization or a management team or whatever. Get the best people. Everybody's getting rid of the best people. They're reacting. This is the time to build your market share and your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Think long term. Where do you want to end up? And then to me, the most important one is profit, your financial being. The biggest thing I could say is, again, on a piece of paper, don't think like a friggin' accountant. That'll kill you.
Says the accountant. I love that.
But when I ran my own businesses, I realized that was getting me in trouble. Think the way we think as business owners. Common sense. That's all I'm asking in all these 8 Ps is how much cash is coming in, project it out for the next 13 weeks, week by week, and 12 months, and even go out 3-4 years. You know your accuracy is going down, but you're setting up benchmarks.
Yes.
And then how's the money going out? So you got your cost of goods sold, your variable cost, your JV partners, stuff like that.
Yep.
You have your salaries, and number one salary on that list should be your own. Yes. Don't take what's left over. That's the wrong way to think. Okay. Then comes your sales and marketing expenses. Then comes your overhead.
Yep.
Now, what people don't think about, because they think like accountants, is because of your business, you're going to end up paying taxes. That's a business expense. Plan for that in your cash flow. Any asset purchases, debt repayment, and whatever withdrawals you're going to get. So if you're an S corporation, you're taking salary, but you're also taking withdrawals. The IRS knows what we're doing. Mm-hmm. They're not stupid. So budget for it. So don't budget like an accountant, budget like a business owner. And make sure that you're in positive cash flow. And if not, what do you renegotiate? Mm-hmm. What do you do to get yourself back into positive cash flow?
Love that.
So those are my 8 Ps, if you will. And that's how I keep going to the 50,000 foot view.
Love it. So whenever we get ourselves into any sort of trouble related to the weeds, back to those 8 Ps. And honest to goodness, I like how you structured, and you and I did a show earlier where you were talking about this is how we do it in a regular marketplace. This is how we do it in a recession. This is how we do it in a boom cycle, and the slightly different questions that we must view these 8 Ps through. So can you give us a little hint of, I think what the technical definition of the recession piece is that it's what is it, 12 weeks of continued decline or those sorts of things? I don't know what the technical thing is.
I don't think anybody else does either.
Okay.
So you know the difference between a recession and a depression, don't you?
I don't.
Oh, a recession is when your neighbor is out of work. A depression is when you're out of work. So those are my criteria.
Well, did you ever happen to read The Wealthy Barber, a Canadian financial management book or financial planning book that sort of took Canada by storm probably 20 years ago?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with that at all.
It was written by a gentleman named David Chilton, who created an entire empire around this book, and the whole thing was about a little bit like the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing. It was this barber who actually ran his business incredibly well and invested a little bit of money and was wealthy as could be. Anyway, the thing out of that whole book that I still remember the most was that his definition between a want and a need. Have you heard this one?
No, go ahead. I'm game.
A need is a want of yours that your neighbor already owns.
Got it.
It's so bad, but it's cute.
Well, I mean, but you got to something which is part of the product and the messaging is Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah.
Okay. Where a few weeks ago, we were going for self-esteem and actualization and all that crap. Now we're going for survival.
Yes.
And so your message, it doesn't even have to be a different product. So when I say sell my 90-day cash flow challenge, my messaging during great times is, man, let's get way, way ahead of the curve. Right now, it's how do you use this to survive? It's the same product, but we're looking at it through a different lens.
Yep.
And the APs, the lens I gave you today was look at it as today's the status quo. We have a U-shaped recovery and a V-shaped recovery. 4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have even said that. I would have said reset. Matter of fact, you have some of the recordings, Jay.
Yep.
I would have said recession, status quo, boom. But you've got to look at these things. These aren't stagnant, even though these 8, I've been teaching these 8 things for probably 25 years now.
Yep.
But each period or each economic cycle, they take on new meaning.
Yep.
It's sort of like reading the Bible, and I'm not a religious guy. When you read it as a kid, it's sort of a bunch of stories. When you read it in your middle ages, if you will, let's say 20s to 40s, you look at it through that lens. And when you read it at my age, it's got a whole different meaning. Same words. The words didn't change at all.
Yeah, the context did.
The context and our experience changed. Yeah. So I've always looked at these numbers, but like until 2 weeks ago, I would never have said U or V-shaped recovery. Yeah. It's just, you got to go with the flow. It evolves.
Here's what I really love about the numbers is that, or the 8 Ps, is that there are ways to be profitable even in a recession. And this is the part that I want people to keep thinking about, is that we can go back and renegotiate. We can pivot our offers. We can adjust pricing. We can adjust payments, all those pieces. I wanted to share an interesting story. A friend of mine, Alex, sent me a notice. Like, he's been doing online courses, and his whole piece, he helps people sell. It's like his regular program was $5,000. He dropped it to $1,500 and then made a results guarantee. It's like, pay $500 now, pay the balance of $1,000 when you make $7,000 in sales utilizing the tools in the process, and it's on the honor system. So you do it or you don't do it. It's all good, but we're gonna stand and deliver. And it's like, man, I like that approach. But he is working with evolving products. His promotion has changed. His pricing has changed. His profit model has changed. Like, all of it has changed, and he's been incredibly responsive and doing stunningly well.
That's what it takes. You got to keep reinventing yourself. Look, you all know this. I'm going to tell you something that's really obvious. There's only one constant in business: change. That's it. We're always doing this. It's just that in times like this, we become laser focused on changing our perspective.
Yeah.
But you got to get out of the weeds. You got to get away from it. And literally, most of my tools I could do on the back of a napkin. Yep. I've started some of my best businesses on the back of a napkin.
As have I. I love that.
So, I mean, everybody, I know I taught CPAs how to write 20, 30, 40, 50 page business plans, but my best plans were on one page because I could focus on it. So just grab a napkin, guys. That's all it takes. A napkin and a pen or pencil. And guess what? If you don't like what you're seeing, change it. Make it work. But just hoping it's going to work versus knowing it's going to work are two different worlds.
Yes, it is. Very well put, brother. Okay, so they should go through the 8 Ps. They need to make a plan. Anything else in terms of, I led with an odd question. Anything else that people should be thinking about that they're not, that can help this process of really diving into the 8 Ps and getting the most out of it? And by the way, I know that you've got or I don't know if that's true. You still have a special offer going on. Is that correct in terms of helping people with this?
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be running a workshop to go through the 8 Ps in detail on May 7th. Okay. And I forgot all about that offer, Jay. So 2 things. If you'd like to know more about this, email me at jkprager@gmail.com. I have a webinar on May 7th coming up from 10:30, a workshop from 10:30 to 1:30. If you want to come in, I've got a special price for everybody who's associated with Jay. That's $297. I promise you, you will have a strategic plan to get through this before your 3.5 hours are up. Okay. But the only way you could get it is by emailing me directly, jkprager@gmail.com. Say, I know Jay in the email, and I'll give you the link where the special offer is.
Awesome. I'm putting that in the chat. We're going to pop it up on the screen. And here's the honest goodness truth. This is an exceptional offer. If you see all of the details around it and you want some support from somebody who gets money and has navigated his way, not just for himself, but for his clients and for a ton of organizations, to not just survive, but to actually thrive and position themselves to thrive post issue, Jeff's your guy. So for goodness sake, his email is in the chat. Click on it and just say, I know Jay. He'll get you hooked up with an offer that will frankly curl your hair and make a monumental difference for you navigating your way through this. My wife and I keep looking at it. These are very entertaining times. These entertaining times.
It is different. It is very different, and we're all reacting in our own ways. And I know I haven't been out of my house since mid-February. Not literally. I'm a bike rider, but so I ride my bike on the bike paths here. Denver has great bike paths.
Yes, it does.
But look, we're going to get through this one way or another, and it will get better. It always does. Okay, so just try and focus on where you want to end up. And make sure that you're doing everything. Make a decision not based on your checkbook, not based on where you are right now, but based on where you want to end up. And your decision making is going to get so much easier.
Yes, but so I'm going to leave them with this thought in terms of why they have to go and do this work with you. Is that one of the most difficult things in the universe for human beings, particularly when they are scared, is to make a decision based on their future, not on their present. And that, my friends, is the difference between coming out of this thing with momentum and getting mowed over by this thing. Is you have got to make that fundamental shift, is to choose in alignment with your future self, not being motivated by the fear of what you're currently facing. That one thing is, every personal development book in the history of mankind.
It's the old pain or pleasure formula. Yeah. Where do you want to go?
Absolutely true. All right, brother. So I appreciate you sharing your wisdom again. And I always like your solid, grounded, common sense approach to let's actually get under the hood. Let's figure this thing out. Let's see where we're at. And we can get through this, and we can. And remember, my friends, this too shall pass, like everything. So in the meantime, let's take care of one another. Let's support one another, and let's do what needs to be done for our lives, for our businesses, for our families, and for our tribes. We will see you soon. Jeff, so thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jay.
All right. Take care, brother. Bye-bye. Bye.